From the Live X Studios in New York City, Cheesehead TV brings you two guys who like to think they know something about football.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Packer Transplants Live. I am Aaron Nagler, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Corey Behnke, my partner here at Cheesehead TV. I'm coming to you live from the Cheesehead TV podcast studio in Midtown Manhattan. Corey joins us live from Green Bay, Wisconsin, across the street from Lambo Field, and we are ready to talk some Packers. What do we have on tap today, Corey?
Today, we try to make sense of the senselessness that is the 2023 Green Bay Packers. But right now, it's time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. We got the good. We got
A.J. Dillon, trucking fools.
We got the bad. We got
Carrington Valentine, use that physicality, young man.
We got the ugly. We got
your Green Bay Packers coaching staff. Da, 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 da. Extra time to face the crappy Raiders, take that L. Extra time to face the crappy Broncos, take that L. I don't like this pattern, Behnke. It's time to break it. Got to get this W on Sunday against the Vikings.
I mean, here's the thing.
What's the thing?
In the last 30 years, we pretty much always play down to the team we're playing. If a team's crappy... Like you know how like times when we would be like it was guaranteed we were going to the playoffs and probably going to win the North and we'd still end up losing to the Lions twice, at least one time. You know what I mean? When the Lions were terrible,
right.
Like not this year when the Lions are good. So you know we're kind of I don't know. I know we have extra special things, but I don't know. Sometimes it feels like I know you experience this more than others, but sometimes it just seems like people are out of their minds, and it's probably just because I think it's just because of the world we live in and the way that the negative rolls to the top more than anything else. But all this negativity has me more positive, and you know what? It's the Packers' fault for beating the Bears so definitively in Week 1, right? They gave us hope, right?
Blame the Packers.
They Princess Leia'd our ass, right? They sent R2. We saw the message, and we tried to get back to them. And we got so excited about just spanking the Bears that hard just feels so good, right? And you just it's almost like we were like, ooh, we don't know what's going to happen this season. And then they show us that, right? And we're like, oh my God, it's on. It's the third coming of Jesus. Here we go. Let's go. Like, yeah, we're going to lose a couple games. We're going to lose some games, and we're going to but we lost our perspective footing, right? I think, I know you and I did, and we did it in like a much less incremental way, but I swear to God, it is like this Packers team is a Rorschach test for Green Bay Packer fans, and it's a generational Rorschach test. I don't know if I'm saying Rorschach right. I've said it 3 times incorrectly now, probably.
Rorschach, I believe, is how it's pronounced, but you're close. It's fine.
But it really is. It's literally every play,
right?
Really
good way to put it, actually. Yeah.
That Jordan Love touchdown fluke, right, is a good pass to Romeo Doubs. That Romeo Doubs just doesn't catch, right? And then it goes into the hands of, the touchdown, right? But that is a Rorschach test because if you look at it, you're like, oh, Jordan Love made a good throw. But other people, when they first look, and other people are like, oh, Jordan Love, he can't throw. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's incredible. Right. Or like, looking at a quarterback, there are generations of Packer fans that never experienced a quarterback throwing a lot of interceptions. And honestly, Jordan Love is in the middle of interceptions, right? You had the guy who threw all the interceptions, and then you had the guy who threw no interceptions, and now Jordan's right in the middle being like, I don't know who I am.
I'm still trying to figure it out. I mean, that's the thing. I made that comparison to Brett the other day, and some people lost their minds. But I'm like, I'm not saying he's Brett Favre, but it is very reminiscent. And I know you remember this, Corey. And I talked to people who don't seemingly all week, like how frustrating it was watching Brett when he first started. I mean, there were games where you were like, what the hell is he doing? And I kind of get that feeling sometimes watching Jordan Love. Not all because of Jordan Love, but it's pretty similar. It's a very young team, a very young quarterback, and you're right. The Rorschach test is perfectly stated because I do think people are coming at it with their whatever lens they're looking through. And look, I get it. If you are of a certain generation, yeah, all you've known is Aaron Rodgers. You know, I'm not surprised that people are frustrated and calling for a new quarterback already. I mean, there's zero doubt that the Packers are ready to ride this at least through the season, if not next season as well. But I understand why fans are impatient. They've watched greatness for a very long time.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of Aaron Rodgers, he said something very prescient that I want to bring up that I saw on Pat McAfee recently, and he was talking about, and he was actually talking about hand signals, right? And he was talking about like, yeah, great, steal my hand signal. I stole your hand signals. Now I know the defense is doing that. Well, guess what? And this is what I think Packer fans really need to understand. And I'm not going to say this correctly. I didn't write everything he said down, but he was like, guess what? I still have to execute. I still have to snap the ball. I still have to not get sacked or pressured. I still have to convince the safety to do the thing he's going to do in cover 4, and then I still have to make a good throw to the receiver. So even if I know what the hand signal is, I still have to do 5 things. And these are the problem. This is the biggest problem I have with social media and kind of a lot of fans, you know, on our chat and people who are just like fire Matt LaFleur and, you know, all the extremists out there. It's like the amount of things that have to go right for 11 men on the field against 11 other men on the field, right? Literally, and you know, starting with our offensive line, right? Our offensive line is broken. There is
a problem.
And if your offensive line is broken in football, I don't care how good or bad your coach is. I don't care how good or bad your quarterback is or your tight ends. Like all that is just kind of like, yeah, they're terrible too. But like
it's side salad to the main course is what it is.
It really is.
Yep.
It really is. Like they and you know, a lot of people give me shit because they're like, "Oh, well, you guys were talking about how it was all on Aaron Rodgers." Well, first off, we never said it was all on Aaron Rodgers ever in the last 3 years that we were incapable of getting to the Super Bowl in these last 3 years. It was never all on Aaron Rodgers. There were separate issues there. But you know, the fact that we have not been able, and some of this is because of David Bakhtiari. I'm not going to put all the blame or pin everything on him, but clearly the Packers organization has not been able to settle on 5 guys, and this is NFL wide too. By the way, like I don't know that there's an NFL
league-wide
team out there. Yeah,
is
there an NFL team out there that
league epidemic at this point? Yes, correct. I mean, if you have one that's good and stays together healthy, you're usually going pretty deep into the playoffs. I mean, the Chiefs and Eagles literally had the 2 healthiest offensive lines last season when both played in the Super Bowl. You know, the Eagles are healthy up front again this year, and that is helping them win these games. You know what I mean? Like, it's not,
which is interesting because it should really tell you how important the defensive line is to your defense, right? It's like if you can't field an offensive line, you better damn field a defensive line because
you got to win up front. Yes, the game is controlled at the line of scrimmage, 100%. And right now, the Packers aren't doing it on either side of the ball, and that is an issue. And that is the driving issue. You know, everyone wants to talk about the quarterback. Everyone wants to talk about Joe Barry or the wide receivers or whatever. But it's like, man, those lines got to win, and right now they're not. Like that. That's number one. But you know what? That's pretty negative. I want to talk about the positive, Corey. I want to start with the hotness because that's what we do here at Packer Transplants. Let's get to the hotness. Time for the hotness. Well, you know, picking out positive/hot type plays was a fun exercise this week.
There was a good drive. There was a really nice drive.
There were a couple. I had one where I loved there was a kind of a back cut from Jones on a zone run that I really liked, and there was A.J. Dillon going right up the middle on a counter for like 15 yards I was going to use. But I wanted to highlight this play, which is I'm pretty sure is an RPO. Love hits Romeo Doubs to the right. Let's roll the play here because I love that. Okay, the motion across. You watch the linebacker shift. He's going to motion again. The linebackers are going to shift away from where you're throwing the football to Romeo Doubs. Great block by Watson to seal, and, Romeo does the rest. But also watch this from the end zone angle. At the snap of the ball, watch Zach Tom get upfield and be like, oh, no one to hit? Okay, I'll go lay out this corner. Like, oh, okay, here we go. Seal, boom, corner on the ground. I mean, perfectly executed plays like that are pretty few and far between in Green Bay right now. That one was phenomenal, and I loved every bit of it. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the hotness. And also, we usually wait until like the blogosphere part at the end of the show to do these promo things. And I thought, no, people are usually listening at the start of the show. Let's promo one of our events at the start of the show. Meaning, people, mark your calendars. November 3rd, meet Corey Behnke at Revere's Wells Street Tavern in Delafield, Wisconsin. Drew and KB will be broadcasting iHeartRadio in the house. Drew and KB will be on live from 3 to 6. Then Corey and company will be throwing down from 6 to 8. Friday, November 3rd, Delafield. Do it, people. Corey.
It's going to be fun.
I wish I could join you, man. But have a good time.
It's going to be fun. We're going to be fun. I'm excited to see Drew and KB in the iHeart team. So I'm excited to have them there. And great that they're partnering with us and making it happen. It's been fun. Good stuff. Let's get to Packers news. Unfortunately, got to lead with the biggest news probably of the week is Darnell Savage and Eric Stokes both placed on injury reserve. Eric Stokes, my God, this Lord.
kid. I
did he even have? He had 4 plays, right? 4 plays.
4
6?
Special team snaps. 4 snaps on special teams, and hurt his hamstring, and so badly that he had to be placed on injury reserve. Which means both of these guys, both Savage and Stokes, have to miss at least 4 games. Both will be eligible to be brought back after that. Not that they will automatically, but if they're healed up and ready to go, they can be brought back off injured reserve. On a more positive note, Devondre Campbell is back practicing, albeit in a limited capacity, but it's good to see him out there. I know he went into last week's game listed as doubtful. Hopefully we can bump that up, maybe get him back out on the field against the Vikings. Packers will need every bit of help they can get. And then on the flip side, we got Luke Musgrave not practicing, second day in a row, dealing with that ankle injury, kind of miraculously in my mind. He has apparently no lingering effects from that hit in the Broncos game where the safety got ejected and now was suspended for 4 games, got it knocked down to 2 on appeal. But Musgrave, not a problem, apparently head trauma-wise, but dealing with that ankle injury, I'm going to be surprised if he's able to play at this point on Sunday against the Vikings. And going on top of that, Preston Smith missed today's practice with an illness. Yeah, keep him away, man. Corey, I was saying this, with all the injury, the last thing they need is illness going through the locker room. We've seen that happen before. Keep him away from the team until he's all kind of rested and healed up, all of that nonsense. And then some other, roster maneuvering, because I know that's your favorite, Corey. Corey Valentine brought up from the practice squad to the 53-man roster. We saw him quite a bit this summer. He's been up and down throughout the season, so now he is on the 53-man roster. And then we have the Packers signing Robert Rochelle from Carolina's practice squad, a corner, former 4th-round pick for the Rams, with all the injuries at corner and in the secondary, getting some reinforcements there. Hopefully he's this year's version of Rasul Douglas. Who knows? We'll see. Like I said, former 4th-round pick. He's bounced around a little bit. Hopefully he can stick here in Green Bay. And then finally, Corey, I found this interesting. Our boy, the young phenom, Anders Carlson, missed his first kick of the season this past game. And lo and behold, Mason Crosby has worked out for the Rams. I wonder if Mason picked up the phone and was like, oh, hey, can I come work out for you? Because, this kid just missed his first kick, and maybe the Packers will get desperate. Maybe not. But no. Mason working out for the Rams. Not signed yet, as far as I can tell, as we're live here on Thursday afternoon. But that's all the Packers news that's fit to print, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about this offense, Corey. Let's talk about Zach Tom. We looked at him in the Hotness video. We got to see Zach Tom at center for about 5 plays. Looked really good. And then, Myers got healthy enough to come back in. So what was a brief, fleeting, quiet moment of hopefulness for the offensive line to be shuffled and changed and hopefully improved got dashed by the wayside. I will say, though, shout out to Josh Myers, who I thought came in and played pretty darn well considering he was dealing with an injury. I know we've given him a lot of grief on this here program. This is why I want to give credit where it's due. I thought he held up pretty damn well, especially, like I said, considering he was battling injury. Can we get Dontavian Wicks on the field? Just every time this kid is out there, something positive happens. Whether he's throwing the football, whether he's catching it,
he's QB2.
Whether he's blocking. I mean, QB2, right? He is. And if you guys haven't seen, Cassidy Hill did a nice chalk talk video with Wicks in the Packers locker room where he walked through that play where he has the pass to Aaron Jones. It's pretty insightful. It's good stuff. And then, hey, we talked about it a little. We touched on it at the start, but I'll let you expand on it if you want a little bit, Corey. Jordan Love can't find a rhythm. And some of that is Jordan Love. Some of that is the offensive line. Some of that is the receivers. And some of it's the play calling. It's like, I feel not bad,
you're missing a fourth point that's actually not been talked about enough is
what's that?
The tight ends we on this team cannot block to save their fucking life. It is ridiculous. The amount of tight end.
Incorrect.
How many times do you see a tight end just whiff completely on a freaking block? How many times have we seen that in the last 3 games, especially? It's almost like when they're moving, but even when they're just in pass pro and they just completely whiff on people. It's pathetic. So the first 2 drives of this offense, they were overrun. That's why I put my tweet I put on. I mean, they were overrun. It wouldn't have mattered if Matt LaFleur called a flea flicker. It just didn't matter what was called in the first. That we were overrun. Like we should have just retreated the first two offensive drives because it was very clear that whatever we were
punted
doing
on 3rd down. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
how do you get in a rhythm when you're overrun like that? How do you do it?
Yep.
Slants?
Yep, you can't.
Quick
maybe
check downs.
I guess.
And
something.
then, and then what?
Angle routes.
I don't know. I really can't. I really don't believe you can blame. You can put a lot of blame on Jordan. Now, great quarterbacks. They overcome those deficiencies, right? And so clearly, I think there's a lot that Jordan learned from that game. There has to be, because he had a hit. How do you get a guy in rhythm when you're being overrun? I don't know.
Yeah,
have we seen teams fix that? I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because I keep going back. It's funny you say that because you're absolutely 1,000% correct regarding great quarterbacks, right? Being able to overcome. Never forget when, Rodgers had, suspect offensive lines. He made up for it by getting the ball out of his hands quickly and having the quickest release known to man, right? There was a game even recently. I mean, I'm talking like that's back in like the early 2010s, whatever. But like even recently, a couple years ago, I remember that night game when the Rams came into Lambeau and Rodgers barely had like 3 seconds on any passing down. Aaron Donald was just collapsing every single pocket. But Aaron did such an amazing job of knowing exactly where the ball needed to go and or where he could at least get rid of it, like throw it to the sideline, at least in the vicinity of a receiver, so it's not intentional grounding. But my guys aren't holding up. Got to get rid of it, and that's something that you learn with time in the league and knowing what's allowed and where you can go and things like that. Jordan obviously is learning all that on the job, day in, day out, week in, week out. These games, to your point, getting overrun up front. I mean, between the Detroit game and that early start against Denver. And the problem for me, if you're a coach, how do you even address it outside of guys? We got to get more consistent across the board because it's everybody. I mean, outside of Zach Tom, who I think, going back and watching it again, I think it's hard to find a play where Zach kind of got either blown up or missed a block. He wasn't perfect, but he was on assignment sure pretty much throughout the entirety of the game. Other than that, I mean, that second play in the opening drive, Elton Jenkins completely whiffs on the block.
Yeah.
And that's Elton fucking Jenkins. And you lose 2 yards, and now you're behind the sticks.
Yep.
3rd and long, and you end up having to punt. Like, I'm not surprised because to your point, you're getting overrun. And if you're a coach, you're sitting there going, well, I expect Elton Jenkins to be able to block.
Well, and what's crazy is they're keeping tight ends to pass block, and I'm like, why?
Right.
Just put more running backs in then.
Right.
Like, seriously, Emmanuel Wilson can block better than these tight ends. I mean, I think the tight end play on this team has been probably the most disappointing thing besides the offensive line so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's to your point about, like, you're keeping tight ends in to block. That's your idea, right, as a coach, and you're thinking, I got to add bodies. I got to bulk up my pass pro. But I remember Rodgers kind of a couple years ago, I want to say coming off a game in Cincinnati where they were overrun and they kept trying to tried to go max protect, right? And they kept getting run over. And there was this whole discussion coming off that week about Aaron at his locker saying, I like more guys in the routes. I know we can't hold up front. Give me options as a passer. And sometimes I think about that because, like, you look at what Matt's calling, and he is, like, completely understandably, to your point, Corey, it's saying, like, let's keep these tight ends in and let's try and get some extra pass pro. But when they're getting run over, when they're completely whiffing blocks, or my favorite, going across the formation and just doing a Superman into midair and completely missing anything, let alone a player, why not just put them out in routes and give Jordan more options as far as where to go with the football? Because right now he's going lots of, like, heavy protection. Only 1, 2, maybe a check down are available. And if you're going into these too high shells, there's no option for you as a quarterback. There's nowhere to go with the football. So maybe that's something, especially this week with Minnesota and their blitz-heavy defense. Give them lots of little short options. Possibly.
I mean, saying all
rather
that,
than asking
right?
Tight ends just whiffing on blocks.
Saying all that, the Packers, have been able to, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, without the bye, is what I'm counting, they've been able to put together one good quarter for the offense. So that's something to hang our hat on. Typically, it comes in the third quarter.
Usually the third, right?
Yep, and we're typically a little bit behind. You know, the fact that the Packers were 1 point ahead in that game, I think, says a lot about the offense. It says a little bit about the resiliency. It says a lot about, like, we have the potential to get consistent at times when we focus. And, you know, it just shows you how young this team is. But there's definitely green shoots. You know, the seedlings are there. You know, you got, like, small microgreens shooting up different places, but you know, we're still kind of in blackout mode where, you know, there's a lot of growth that needs to happen yet before we can really put together 4 quarters, it seems like.
Yeah, very much agreed. Let's move on to the defense and talk about how, you know, the kind of mantra I've been hearing is, you know, they're in every game, right? They're holding these teams to under 20 points, and these are games they should win. Hell, I've said it, right? Like, the offense is doing them no favors. They are holding teams out of the end zone for the most part, keeping the scoring down, keeping them in striking distance. But, man, I've never seen a coordinator and or, like, defensive side of the ball that is so situationally tone deaf. As far as, I mean, the opening drive, I know Mike Wall highlighted it, Andy Herman highlighted it, but, you know, you get in there, you're 3rd and short, you hold them, it's 3rd and 2 or whatever. They substitute adding heavier bodies onto the field, and the Packers run TJ Slayton off and add a safety and add a line. I'm just so okay.
Oh, that's the Andy Herman tweet, right? That's the one where he tweets. You got
saved by a holding penalty, but, like, situational football, man. And then you fast forward to the end of the game, or to the 4th quarter anyway, where the Packers have scratched and clawed and gotten their back into the game, and they've taken their first lead of the game. It's 17-16. There's 8 minutes left in the game, and the Broncos waltz basically down the field because Joe Barry has, like, not prevent, but he's playing
but basically
his
prevent.
Soft shell cover too high.
But what does he have? What does he have to play, though? What does he have? Does he have press? Does he have it?
Trying to pressure the quarterback.
So you want him to blitz?
Not just necessarily blitz, but
I'm scared of this team blitzing for a lot of reasons.
A little bit.
Okay, I hear you, but here's why I'm scared of this team blitzing. We've just starting to get this defensive line to hold contain. They got serious issues when it comes to holding the edges. If we just let this team blitz, I mean, I guess Lucas Von Ness maybe, but I guess we do have some special skills players that could blitz, but it's hard when you don't have Jair, you don't have somebody. I don't know. I totally get you. I mean, at the very least, you should have body for body. That's pretty typical, right? Like they have a strong package, you should have a strong package. Like that to me seems like a mistake or a failure on some part on the coaching staff. But I hear you about like they should call something, but do they even have that? Have we ever seen them this season or even last season really be able to play anything that resembles
Yes. You know what? Go back and watch the Vikings game in Lambeau Field last year. You'll see a play style very similar to what I'm talking about as far as desiring them to just be a little bit more aggressive. And I'm not saying
but we had Jair in the game.
End of the bar.
We had Jair in the game.
We absolutely did. No question about it.
There's a difference there, right? Because you can put Jair on an island. Sure. Who do we have that we can put on an island?
This is a great idea. This is a great point. I would love to hear what your thoughts on this were. Because somebody asked me this on Daily the other day, and I really hadn't thought of it this way before, but I think it's an interesting question. Carrington Valentine, who, had a rough game, was picked on definitely by the Broncos for good reason. He's a rookie. If you're Russell Wilson, of course that's where you're going. But it was interesting to see how aggressive and physical he was this summer in both training camp and in the preseason games. Then you fast forward to the game on Sunday, and he's playing up, but he's not playing physical. He's definitely not trying to get his hands on Cortland Sutton or these Denver receivers. He's not jamming him at the line. He's kind of playing a bail technique, trying to run with them. And I'm like, is that the scheme? Is like that legit what you're telling your guys? Don't do the thing you're good at. Like that's where
it's got to be.
For me, there's a bit of a disconnect. He's good at it. Let him do it. Like, is he going to get beat maybe once or twice? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, of course he is. But guess what?
This team had Al Harris
on Sunday.
If this team had Al Harris, they probably wouldn't even let him do what he's good at. And Al Harris was the best mugger we've had since.
Yep, forever. That's a really good point. You're right. Like they'd have like Al Harris playing like soft cover 2 shell. All right. Try not to get depressed.
Well, and that's to your point, right? It must be scheme because when you have a guy who's known for that and you're not letting him do what he's good at, it's got to be a choice. It has to be a philosophy or a choice.
How you're being taught, how you're being coached, right? Yeah.
Or, I mean, one thing I will say, I said this in the chat about, if you don't, there's something to be said, and this is hard for me right now because this is hard in business, right? Is how long do you stick with something? And it's a very important thing because, you have to make a decision strategically as a leader on how long you're going to stick with something no matter what, unless something happens, right? So, everybody's like, oh, this is a failure. Not everybody, but there's a lot of people like, oh, this is a failure of leadership of Mark Murphy and Brian Gutekunst. And somebody said, did we see the Rich Eisen thing? And Rich Eisen had this really cool thing about like, hey, welcome to being a Jets fan, Packers fans. Welcome to being a normal NFL fan, which was really great. And he actually was giving praise to Goody and that clearly there's not a leadership vacuum. There is a strategy in place. Whether you agree with it or not, or I agree with it or not, they don't care, which is what I said on Watch Party. But you don't know what you have when you just change stuff all the time. Now, on the flip side of that, you have to give stuff a expiration date, a time, right? And I've been guilty in business. I always say, like, some things take 2 to 3 years before you even realize what you have, and I've had things like that. And there's been other things where I should have probably let them, die or like got rid of them 2 years in or 1 year in. So these are very hard decisions you have to make. And in the NFL, these are accelerated by fans and the billions of dollars and all the things. But if you look at the Packers, if you look at the Packers historically, what they've been able to do, they are the winningest team in in football, in the NFL, that they've been able to do over the last 30 years. They weren't even close 30 years ago. So
Right.
consistently, they're the second or third most successful team in the NFL in the last 30 years from a championship and winning points, winning football games standpoint. And so you have to have some trust there. I know a lot of people like attack us for being like, oh, well, you guys just, you just let them do whatever they're going to do. It's like, no, we are going to go through this season with Matt LaFleur and Joe Barry and Jordan Love. We are going. Yep. That is what we're going to do. 17 games.
No matter what we do or say, that is going to happen. Exactly.
Because, and I'll tell you this too, and there's a reason why this is smart. One, you can't tell another human being that you just said you are my guy. If you're my guy, you're my guy, right? And I'm going to give you the chance, and I'm going to commit to you, right? Commitment matters from a leadership standpoint of what you're going to try to do. And also, like, when you look at how, I go back to the Rich Eisen thing about how young the team is, and that's not an excuse. A young team is not an excuse. What's great about a young team is they don't know what they don't know. So they got to figure that out, right? They don't know what they don't know. Right. Yeah. That's a positive and a negative. So it's a negative right now, but it's a positive from the standpoint of they can be molded in. I got a fly flying on me. He's liking what I'm saying. They can be molded into what. They can be molded into what we need them to be on this team. They can gel together. They can be together. The one thing I really, probably the only positive I can hang my hat on in this situation is the fact that these guys are doing it together. And if they are able to find a way to punch through, the negativity, the feelings of, powerlessness, the feelings of like making mistakes and power through that, they're going to do it together, which is going to ultimately make them stronger. So that is the one thing I'm going to hang my hat on. But all of you out there that are asking for Joe Barry to be gone or Matt LaFleur to be gone or play calling to change. Play calling's not going to change. I do not see that. I do not see Matt LaFleur changing up his play calling, because how the F do you learn if you don't keep trying and you don't keep trying to figure it out? I just don't see Matt going, oh, you know what, I'm overwhelmed, I'm going to change play calling. He's like, no, he's going to keep trying to figure it out week in and week out, because that's his job. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree for the most part. I do wonder, as I posited on Packers Daily and Tyler clipped and then everyone got to attack me about it. I just wonder, does it come to a point where Matt, of his own admittance last January, said, if I think this gives us the best chance to win, yeah, I'm going to consider it and or do it. And I'm not saying he's there right now, but you get a month more into this, and there's still kind of fits and starts on offense, and they can't find their way, blah, blah, blah. Does he think, like, you know what, maybe it's time? I don't know. I'm just saying the man himself has admitted he's thought about it. That's all. That was my only point with that. Continuing on the defense, Kenny Clark needs to bounce back. Kenny Clark is coming off one of his worst games, not just of this season, but that I have seen from Kenny Clark in a long time. And not just, not productive, because of course it's tough to be productive at that position. Defensive tackle is not a stats position. But man, they need him this week against this Vikings front, which has been very good and much better than they have been historically. We need Kenny to reawaken. And, his old buddy Bradbury there, the center for the Vikings, traditionally he's gotten the better of him. So hopefully, friendly confines of Lambeau Field against an opponent he's familiar with, we get to see Kenny Clark back in the fold, because what he put on the field last week is not the Kenny that we're used to, and we need to get him back. And then finally, because Savage is going to be out for at least 4 weeks, here comes Jonathan Owens, going to step in at safety for the Green Bay Packers. Couldn't win the job in training camp, did get some opportunities with the starting team in both camp and preseason. Basically been very rotational up until Sunday, and now it's his gig. He was a 17-game starter for Houston last year. Like I said, been kind of biding his time. I mean, I don't know, man. That Sunday he was really up and down. Hopefully with a week of preparation, a game plan specifically, knowing that he's in there from Joe and company. hopefully that mitigates some of that. But here's hoping. Guys, those are big shoes. And I know everyone's like, oh, well, Savage, he's not a superstar. No, he's not. But he was having a much better season.
Yeah.
He was having a much better season than he's had recently. And what I loved what Savage was doing this season up until last week was just his decisiveness. And it wasn't like he was making every play, but we had seen so much kind of like, I don't know, indecisiveness from Savage the last couple years in Joe's scheme. This season, he was really flying around, and we can't lose that. Owens has to step in and be definitive with what he's seeing and what he's doing. They're going to need it. Kirk Cousins and company, they can move the football. They're going to need Owens to step in so they don't miss a beat. Speaking of that Vikings-Packers game, let's get to 3 real quick preview points. The Packers, Corey, you'll like this. This is a historical angle. The Packers hold a 65-57-3 edge over the Vikings in the all-time series. I didn't realize it was that large. I thought it would be tighter.
It's larger.
I'm not complaining. The lead we have over the Bears?
No. We have a 13-0 edge in championships.
This is correct.
So everybody watch my Vikings cocktail video because I talk a lot of shit about the Vikings throughout it. It's really good. They don't deserve it. The drink doesn't deserve a garnish because they never won a Super Bowl.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Make sure you check out Corey's video on his Vikings cocktail. It's good stuff.
It's actually a good cocktail, but it's very purple.
It is. It tastes good. Hawkinson's dealing with a foot injury. I didn't see the update today. I know he didn't practice yesterday, although that was just an estimation. He's a big problem for the Packers, so anything he's having to deal with. I know he has told reporters he should be good to go for Sunday, but you never know. We'll see how he's feeling on that Lambo turf on Sunday afternoon. And then finally, Corey, I know you'll hate this, but the Vikings are 1.5-point favorites against the Packers on Sunday in Lambeau Field. I don't love that. I don't like what FanDuel's telling.
And I'm going to be honest with everybody right now. I know we talk a lot of shit about Gold Package.
Oh, here we go.
But the Packers sent an email out, and basically the Vikings gave up some tickets, so there were more tickets available. And then I was able to sell. I had gotten some Brown County lottery tickets that I was able to transfer, through the help of Mr. Kyle Cousineau. Thank you for your service, sir.
Hero.
Thank you for your work.
Hero.
I was able to find a Packer fan and Cheesehead TV fan who bought the tickets from me at face value. So we was able to get Packer fans in the seats that I was able to get for Vikings, and it was very exciting. I got to text with him. He's like, "Oh, this is actually Corey." I was like, "Yeah, dude. Who did you think? Well, you think I have an agent or something that sells the tickets?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am. I got him, and I'm not going because of watch party, but I'm here to say I do feel like, given our record and where we are, I think there's going to be a lot of purple in Green Bay because it's unfortunate and I don't like it. Right? I'm just right. Don't kill the messenger, but I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of purple at Lambeau this Sunday.
I'm with you on that.
But you know what? You know the silver lining is we play to who the team is. We really do. We do. Yeah, so we have just as 1.5
Vikings are playing
points
better,
is
so
not a lot.
We're playing better.
Also, Kirk Cousins loves nothing more than to give us the ball. So that's his
correct,
favorite thing
especially
to do.
in Lambeau. That's what he does. I'm down with this idea. Let's get to our Deion Sanders quote of the week. You know, the controversy in college football right now is all about Michigan stealing signs. I love this from Coach Prime. You could have someone's whole game plan. They can mail it to you. You still got to stop it. I love it. I mean, that's kind of what you were talking about with Aaron Rodgers.
It's basically what Aaron Rodgers said. He's like, yeah, just because I know the hand signals doesn't mean I can do anything about it.
Which I thought was another part of that. Another part of that quote from Deion where he was like, it's different in baseball. Like with baseball, stealing signs is legit because like it's just one-on-one, and if you know a curveball is coming, I got you. Like game on.
Yeah.
But like with football, to your point, Corey, like 11-on-11, like you got to stop it. I'm not saying it's right. It's just like it's very different. It is very, very different. All right, let's do it. Come on, Nicholas, give it to me.
This week in the Packer blogosphere.
That's right. It's This Week in the Packer blogosphere, the return of that venerable series. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Packers fans of all ages, if you are not consuming the content of one JT O'Sullivan, a.k.a. the QB School, on these here YouTubes, I highly recommend you rectify that, because each and every week he does breakdowns of pretty much every starting quarterback. Not every quarterback every week, but most of the quarterbacks, most weeks, he gets to their games at some point and breaks down basically everything from the point of view of a quarterback, right? And for those old heads out there, you'll probably remember that JT was at one point a member of the Green Bay Packers. And his stuff on YouTube,
for like a hot minute.
I'm telling you, for very, very a cup of coffee. But his stuff on YouTube is so good. It's so great.
I like him
so
better than Dan Orlovsky or anybody else. Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's just his style, the way he does it. It's so conversational, but clearly coming from a place of knowledge. I clipped this little bit from the Denver kind of breakdown. Let's take a listen to this, and we can talk about it on the other side.
So to me, this is an RPO. And the crazy part for Jordan Love is he gets zero off his feet here with a pump. So pump, change the arm angle under his arm. This is sweet, man. Pump, that's really not even a pump. That's like a turn down. Like he's going to throw it, feels it's going to get batted, turns it down, goes different arm angle underneath, right on the back shoulder, and gets rewarded with a friendly bounce. So really like this design as well. Where the ball ends up going for a touchdown here is going to be right here. But really he's running like a clear. And then we're going to come right underneath him with like that dart as the true one where the ball's trying to go. And then the ball just kind of gets, it's a little bit back shouldery, but it's got to be caught. And then it just gets ricocheted into the number 2's hands. Pretty awesome. But man, what Jordan Love is able to do off this edge defender right here as he jumps to be able to turn down and then kind of change the arm angle to throw an absolute seed. If anything, I would say maybe pull the string on this thing and don't throw it quite as hard. But man, nice problem to have. I mean, look at that throw. That thing is a straight up laser. Whoop. Yo. Get lucky. Hell yes.
Get lucky. Hell yes. Also the name of my upcoming memoirs. But yes, how great is that shit? I mean, I can't recommend it enough. It's kind of like mini Christmas every week waiting for the video to drop. It's so good. Highly recommend you check it out. And then the other thing this week in the blogosphere, Corey, I know you know who they are, but other people out there might not be so nerdified in their life to know about Sports Video Group because they featured the installation of the new video boards. One of their articles. Look at this. Green Bay Packers modernize in-venue show at Lambo Field with new 4K HDR video boards. And they've got all sorts of quotes from our friends, Craig and company over there in 1265 Lombardi. But if you are looking for total nerddom when it comes to Lambeau Field and the upgrade of the video boards, I highly recommend checking this article out because it is pretty damn cool. And that's what I've got for blogosphere this week, Corey. You ready for some YouTube chats, as it were?
Yeah, I'm ready. I had something to say. I forgot what it was. Tyler Node, thanks for Super Chat. Rumor has it there was no Packer transplants last week because Corey didn't answer for Coach Prime's Stanford debacle. Go Stanford and go Pack go. I have no comment about the SVG, and I have no comment about that. But, yeah. Eric, thanks for the Super Chat. I think we're seeing a very young team offense still figuring out how to play together. Do you subscribe to the idea that 2024-25 really could be the breakout years for Love in this offense? Gotta have patience.
Yeah, I subscribe to that. I think they're going to be finding their way all year this year, definitely.
Eddie Petsky, thanks for the Super Chat. Wicks has more passing yards than Kurt Benkert as a Packer. Ooh. Eddie,
the more you know.
I like what you're doing there, Eddie. I really do. Ryan Willie, thanks for the Super Chat. In my opinion, MLF's refusal to make adjustments in-game or week to week is insane.
I mean,
he not making
does he
adjustments?
not make adjustments?
I feel like
How do
he's
they
making
turn things around in the
adjustments.
second half if he's not making adjustments?
I pulled another one, a non-super chat, because I do want to, every time I feel like every time I talk about Joe Barry and Matt LaFleur, but like they're not going to get rid of him, people mistake me saying that how I feel about whether we should get rid of Joe Barry or Matt LaFleur. I'm literally talking about a strategic decision the Packers are going to make and how they do things. Joe Barry, I don't even know how I feel about Joe Barry, because like things like not having the same personnel groupings always annoys me. That annoys me more than like the soft coverage, because I don't know enough about the statistical defense of the NFL to understand what is more likely to have a good. I know defenses that I like, but at the same time, to build those defenses, typically you have to sacrifice something else. And for me, usually teams have to sacrifice offensive players and getting. So I'm always like, well, if our defense, I personally would rather, from what I know about the NFL, which is, somewhat, but very little, really in the grand scheme of things, because I never played, or, I only know what I know as a fan. From my understanding is that it's easier to score in the NFL, so you should focus more of your, salary cap and efforts and coordination on offense, because that should give you, even though defense wins championships, which doesn't mean break the bank and do that, but I always love offense over defense. I love good defenses, but we've never really had a good defense since like 1996. So, the 2010 defense was a shocker and it was a surprise. Raji and all those guys came together, Clay and everybody, and it just, Nick Collins, and that was an incredible defense too, by the way. But it's just my favorite defenses are takeaway defenses, or we always found this one thing with one stat to be number one at, and that put us over the top for the playoffs. But at the end of the day, it was all about our offenses. So, I don't know whether we should get rid of Joe Barry. I just know that Matt LaFleur and the Packers are not going to do it this year. It's not about.
I agree.
I'm not apologizing for Joe Barry. I don't have any opinion. I don't, because I don't know enough about how bad or good our defense is, to be honest with you. I wish I did. Jimmy Johnson, thanks for the super chat. Thanks for that LinkedIn profile view, Nags. Let's get to work. Cheers. What are we
welcome,
working
Jimmy.
on? What are we working on?
But you're welcome, Jimmy.
Joe LaFleur was brought in here. Here, I brought this up because Joe, I had a little I had a little issues with some of the things he said. LaFleur was brought in to be an offensive mind. It's a BS excuse to say he needs to learn. Just more proof without Rodgers he wouldn't be head coach right now. Okay. When I say that Matt LaFleur needs to learn, there's a I don't know why I brought that up, because it just was the most asinine thing I've seen. And so I put it in there because it was just like the whole thing is just asinine. Like that whole comment.
Look, the idea that Matt LaFleur wouldn't be a head coach without Aaron Rodgers, well, great. And Aaron Rodgers wouldn't have won the last two MVPs he won without Matt LaFleur. And you don't have to take my word for it. Aaron Rodgers literally said it on stage when he was winning his second MVP. Like, I understand people are frustrated with LaFleur for multiple reasons, right? But yeah, he needs to learn with this young crew what they can do, what they're good at, how they could possibly work together, where the problem spots are. Like, that takes time. Like, I don't understand this whole idea of like, oh, he's got to have all the answers with this whole offensive crew that is literally historically young. Like, I get it. I get the frustration. But this idea that like, oh, he's just riding Rodgers' coattails while Rodgers is out of town. I mean, he helped remake Rodgers, for God's sakes.
Well, I don't have the full stats to back it up, but we all were bitching about we weren't running the ball enough, right? And the last two games, we've spent a significant time running the ball. Now, you can quibble and say, oh, was Aaron Jones on a pitch count, right? Aaron Jones' health and all that's going. We ran the ball. Now, did we run successfully? Well, when we kept at it, we got to it. But, I don't know when you have 3 or 4 guys every play not executing the play. I don't know, what can a head coach do? Now, you could say, well, he needs to get them better prepared. And it's like, well, they're the youngest team in the NFL. So it's like, yeah, you can get them prepared, but at some point they got to come to play, and they have to
play. Right.
Yeah, and it's like, yes, now you could say, hey, like we've said this, right? It's like, well, if you know that the offensive line is going to get their ass handed to them, then you need to scheme. There's a way to scheme out of that, right? Well, only so much.
Only so much, exactly. At some point, you have to play football, You can only scheme so much or play call so much to mitigate these problems that are rampant because of both their youth and inconsistency. Yes.
Mimsy, thanks for the super chat. Gathering place, off-season beer. Carry the Giannis. I like it.
I like it. My Bucks. Opening tonight. My Bucks. Let's go.
Football. Thanks for the super chat, football. But who will hold me accountable for my beer belly?
Very good. Very good. Somebody saw my rant yesterday.
Wait,
I don't know, but I don't hold myself accountable for my own beer belly, so I'm not going to hold you accountable for yours, football. Oh, I'll send you the link. Someone finally got to me. Like I after the 4,000th person saying that there's no accountability or somebody needs to be held accountable. Just that word accountability.
What does that even mean?
That's what I said. I'll send you the video.
But that's the thing, you guys. Come on, okay? And I hate it when people are like, well, at my job, I would be held. No, okay.
That is nothing like the NFL whatsoever.
At the end of the day, yeah. At the end of the day, these guys, most of the players in the NFL play less than 3 years. Less than 3 years. So they're already going to be held accountable by not being able to play the game that they love. They get all the way, they go from college, they get in this game. They don't actually make a lot of money, you guys. Like, literally 80% of all football players don't make a crazy amount of money. They're in for 3 years. Okay, maybe they made $500,000 or $600,000. And you're like, that's a lot of money. But then they're gone, and they're done. Their career's over. So, like, let's be real for a second. What does accountability mean? You have to show up on time, and you got to do your job. And guess what? There's already a guy that's right behind you trying to take your job at any moment in time, which is not like anybody who's watching this chat. No one who's watching this chat has to deal with that. Or if there are, we're talking about 0.001%, where there's literally someone who is going to take your job next man up. So it's like, what does accountability even mean? Oh, you lost 3 games, so now you have to get fired as a coach? Like, what is even the KPI or the metrics you're even using? And that's my thing. It's like, what is the metric you're using? Is it just losses? Because you need to fucking get a grip. If it's just the fact that the Packers are losing with the youngest team in the NFL, a new quarterback, and a fucking salary cap that's $50 million in the hole, you need to get a grip on life and learn the fucking NFL.
That's well stated, Behnke.
I mean,
I'm saying that's
annoying.
That's the hotness right there. That's next week's hotness. Already sorted.
I didn't even. Well, somebody was like, "I need a Corey rant," and I was like, "I have nothing to rant about," but I do. That whole word, it doesn't even make any sense.
I know.
It doesn't even make any sense.
You and I are in lockstep here.
Thanks for the super chat. Didn't think the former QB would get me pumped up for a rivalry game, but thank you, 12, for calling out the Vikings for pumping in sound of their stadium. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, I'm loving. I'm going to be honest with you. Besides some of his more controversial statements, which I don't even need to talk about, which he's just, I feel like he's just feeding. I feel like he's
trying to keep going.
Yeah, he's trying to get everybody going, right? And I feel like he knows what he's doing on the clickbait side at this point. You know what I mean? He's trolling people, right? So I'm not taking that. But there is something to be said for, the love that he's showing for the Green Bay Packers this season, right? I don't feel like I don't know if this is true, but I feel like he's let a lot of stuff go about that situation, or at least publicly it feels like he's let a lot of stuff go, his feelings, because it feels like he's trying to support Jordan, and it feels like he's trying to support the Packers, and he's not publicly bashing them like he was when he was kind of in his negotiation period, And so I really appreciate it. Like that's why I brought up the thing that he said, because he really has a lot to say about. I mean, I think if he is going to retire, he really should broadcast about the NFL, because I think he has a lot to contribute yet to the entertainment side of the NFL for 100%.
Yep.
Mike, thanks for the super chat. The only positive is it's officially Dame time.
My Bucks, let's go. Throw it down, big man. Throw it down. Let's go.
Con Krug, thanks for the super chat. Channeling my inner James Giambetti. Say it with me. Accountability. Mr. Giambetti was the owner and the voice of the exclusive company.
Say it
thanks
with
for the super chat.
The exclusive company. Downtown Oshkosh. Downtown Appleton. I love it. That's
Wendy Vance, thank you for the super chat. The Packers' first touchdown against the Broncos was kind of a revenge touchdown against Russell Wilson for the one that they took away from us in Seattle.
With two guys holding the ball and the officials standing there with their arms raised, signaling touchdown. That is well spotted, Wendy. Well done. I love it.
I don't want to be biased, but I've heard better. I can't. I just can't. I can't read. Okay, Matthew Clark, thanks for the super chat. And it's I think it's a pound. I think that's the pound sign. I can never tell between the pound sign. It's the pounds, right? So thank you from England, Matthew. Appreciate you from the UK. Excuse me. You got to lose 4 to finish 13-4. Good job to get them out of the way now. I, for one, love the strategy.
Matthew carries the
like
G,
the
ladies and gentlemen. Matthew is across the pond carrying the G. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, and what's funny is I need to say something to Packer fans. I need to do a better job. I need to do a better job being hopeful about this team. I really have been, some of the watch parties, I've been letting the chat get me down, and I feel like, we can't do it, people. Don't let, you remember this, and remember the internet, the negative is always 9 out of 10, right? It doesn't mean there's more negative people than positive people. It's just the negatives. They gotta push their boundaries, right? And the positives, like the moderates, they're like they're there, but they're not necessarily going to speak out loud. So I need to speak more up for the positives, because there's a lot to be positive about this team. They're very small things. They're very small detail things, and it's hard to be positive about this team right now. But it's good.
All it
it's
takes
good
is one win, baby. You beat the Vikings on Sunday. Man, I'm going to be feeling great.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. It's going to be like the Bears game. If we beat the Vikings by like 1 point. But that's the thing. If we could have beat Denver by 1 point.
We're 2-1 in the division.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Oh, dear.
So good. Speaking of positive, let's give a shout out to our Patreon members. You guys are the lifeblood of what we do here at Cheesehead TV. We cannot thank you guys enough for the support. Happy hour. Unfortunately, Corey was unable to make it this week, but we had a humdinger. We went extra long, Behnke. You would have loved it. We were talking well into the evening. And also a shout out to the Carry the G Club members here on YouTube. You guys keep this place humming during watch parties. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for the support. Corey, you got anything else before we head off into the evening?
No, join us for watch party and watch my Vikings cocktail video, people. Let me know what you think about it. Let me know if you get a chance to make it. Make it.
Make it, people. That'll do it for this episode of Packer Transplants. We'd like to thank everyone who makes Cheesehead TV part of their daily Packers routine. We are and will always be devoted to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide.
I think it's a fluid situation, and I know you guys love it, especially Nagler. I can see you smirking at me right there. We're going to take it one day at a time, and it's going to be fluid, though. That's all I can tell you.